Ladies and gentlemen, please silence your phones and hush your babies. The show is about to start.
I offer my personal welcome to this
Nemo
and Cole Conference
halftime
show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NemoCo Conference halftime show. It's the final one. We're almost there. I am so tired, but I am wired up because this was a very interesting session of General Conference, particularly because of the things that President Oakes announced and didn't announce. But we will get there. We will get there. First, we will have the results of Jesus, Joe, or Dallin. Jesus on 50, Joe on 4, Dallin on 7. Dallin doing all right for himself. I feel like that number will go up. But the results of Jesus, Joe, or Russell, you may ask. Russell M. Nelson wins it. Jesus 50, Joe 4, Russell 51. Russell M. Nelson was quoted 51 times. Jesus was quoted 50 times. Russell M. Nelson at this session of General Conference, by my count, your count may vary, but by my count, Jesus was quoted one time less than Russell M. Nelson. And in that way, Russell M. Nelson, even in death, has managed to somehow be more important to the minds of those speaking than Jesus Christ, which, you know, if that's all right with you, then fine. But I feel like maybe that's not the way the Church of Jesus Christ should work. But there we are. Anyway, who might be joining me for this session of General Conference coverage? I wonder, could it be Peter Bleakley? Yes, it could. Hello, Peter. How are you?
Hey, hello. Oh my gosh, that was a close result. Like,
Absolute nail
last
biter.
minute. Yeah, I think
Yes.
we need to demand a recount.
Very possibly. If that were a local by-election, the recount would happen for sure, which is fine. But you know, I'm doing the best I can. Let's crack straight on with it because there's a lot to talk about. So,
there is.
Will we get a temple announcement? That was the question I had in my mind for a little while this weekend, thinking, will we get a temple announcement? Because Russell M. Nelson was known for them. He'd throw them out, be like Oprah giving out stuff on her show. And I thought, okay, we might get, a slowing down, or we might get something. But no, we got no temple announcements at all. And here is the man himself to explain it all to us. Here he is. Yeah, right.
Our doctrine on the family is the temple. The ordinances received there enable us to return as eternal families to the presence of our Heavenly Father. As of the April 2025 General Conference, President Russell M. Nelson had announced the construction of 200 new temples. He loved to announce new temples at the conclusion of each General Conference, and we all rejoiced with him. However, with the large number of temples now in the very earliest phases of planning and construction, it is appropriate that we slow down the announcement of new temples. Therefore, with the approval of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, we will not announce any new temples at this conference.
So the moment that Nelson is out, he's like, right, yeah, cut, guys, no more temples. Because the way he phrased it, Russell M. Nelson loved announcing temples. And yes, he did. He really did love it. And Oakes is essentially saying, but we can't sustain it anymore. We're going to stop, because that was very much a him thing. That's not going to be my thing. We're stopping. We're slowing down. We're chilling out, because boy, oh boy, did he announce a lot.
I mean, they've got the money to build these things, but I think the stat I heard this week was only 30 of them have even started being built or something. Like, this is madness. You know, there were insiders in the temple department saying that Russell had literally told them he wanted to spam the world with 1,000
Mm.
temples, which is insane. And there's no way enough workers to keep them open. I mean, most of them are going to end up being closed half the time.
Mm.
So someone had to put an end to it, but no one, of course, could say no to the prophet. So this is Dallin's victory for Satan moment. He's like, yeah, screw all that.
So the
Because it's
moment he gets in, he's like, no,
money.
okay, we're pulling back.
Yeah.
Carr said,
Like,
surprised he
this is-
didn't announce that Mormon is okay again. We will get to that later.
That'll come
Because
later, no
there is
doubt.
someone in this session who says it and then has a panic because Nelson has whipped everyone into a panic about using that word. And he's like, ugh, and you can see the tension. It's quite entertaining. But yeah, so no temples.
Wow.
No temples,
Common
which
sense.
is just madness.
Yep.
There was 5 women at this conference, as there were at the last
Ooh,
conference,
yes.
of which 2 were prayers. So, you know, yay.
3 speakers again.
Representation.
Mhm.
Just poor show. We should hear from more women. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
As far as I'm
Even
concerned.
the mad ones, they're fun.
Gary E. Stevenson was conducting. Holland's got his oxygen tube back on, it would seem. Which is fine. You know, the man's unwell, has been on death's door. I'm not faulting him for needing supplemental oxygen at times. But it is a indicator of the sort of how unwell the senior leadership of the church still are. Nelson was 101 years old, went blind and died. Oakes needs help walking to the podium. The podium gets brought to Henry B. Eyring, the current president of the Quorum, or the person who was acting president of Quorum 12 and will be the president of Quorum 12 when Oakes assumes leadership, is not well. So it could be a little bit of a case of dominoes in the next sort of year or so amongst the senior leadership of the church. So things could remain quite turbulent, I would imagine.
Indeed.
Where's Jim? Where is Jim, Peter? Did you spot him?
Next slide. No.
I didn't see him.
No Jim.
No Jim. Other
I
than
saw
like
him
the big
from an
wide
extreme
shot where you can spot
distance.
him.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
you know, yeah.
But we
I
did
didn't
get
see
a
any
good
Jim.
look at the first session or whatever one we did.
Yeah,
There was
2 sessions we got
fantastic
to see Jim, which is great.
That's good.
That's
That's more Jim than usual.
That is more Jim than usual. I wonder whether the camera operators secretly know that we're looking for him, or he's had a word. The opening prayer was Sean R. Dixon, Young Men General Presidency second councillor, and then we had David A. Bednar giving a talk that only David A. Bednar could give, which is a talk all
3
about how
times.
agency isn't really free choice. Agency isn't even really choice. Agency is the ability to do what you've already agreed to do under duress at some point in your life. Right? That's about sum it up.
I was really confused because I swear I've heard literally every word of this talk of his before. I assumed it was a general conference talk, but maybe it was one of the ones he did at BYU Idaho that got very famous because it introduced this idea of moral agency. I can't remember.
He did one with a Spanish interpreter that talks about this as well. That's clipped up a lot, where it's like you don't have your agency has become enlarged essentially when you've covenanted to do something, which means you don't get to choose not to do it anymore.
Yeah,
which is interesting take.
Sam Bauer says you will be assimilated. Brilliant.
Yeah. So yeah, it's David A. Bednar.
Yeah. So
walk us through this.
So yeah, he was talking about Judgment Day. You know, start Judgment Day. It's like, oh, hello, David, you're back. Understand how you will be responsible for your own sins. Moral agency is the ability and privilege to act for yourself in ways that are good, virtuous, and true. You can only do good.
So
now,
so
I
his point is that
hearing that plan of salvation somewhere. What was it? Where you can only do what's good, virtuous, and true. Oh yes, Lucifer. That was Lucifer's plan in that he offered to, and a third of our siblings apparently fell for in the war in heaven. He is literally teaching.
While at the same time saying that Lucifer was the one that was trying to attack our moral agency. He talks about that in this talk. But what he's saying is rather than it being moral agency, i.e. agency, the ability to make choices, and then moral being the adjective in that it is agency within the moral sphere, within moral choices. He actually says rather than looking at moral as an adjective, we should look at it as a divine imperative that you should do moral things. You should choose moral things. That's his thing.
It's where
Moral is not
he
merely
was.
an adjective, but a
Yeah,
divine directive on
yeah,
how we should use our
yeah,
agency. Madness.
yeah. He talked about it as if he was quoting a scripture, because it's like this thing we all understand about moral agency. I mean, does it come from anywhere? I didn't catch who he was quoting, or I mean, I'm sure it's not in the
He talks
scriptures.
about moral agency in the Book
He's
of Mormon.
invented this term, right?
I'm googling right
I
now
don't.
live. This is how
Yeah,
the cookie's made,
how
kids.
prepared we are.
Mm.
But but I mean, it's been out there, but it's his own invention. So I love these guys. He and Oakes are both. He is the Sith apprentice of Dallin Oakes, where
Mm.
it's very clear. And Dallin was the Sith apprentice of Boyd K. Packer. And when Boyd got slapped down for calling the family proclamation a revelation, as soon as President Monson, who did that to him, was gaga, Dallin Oakes took to the pulpit in General Conference years ago and declared it to be a revelation. So Bednar is next in line in that sort of inheritance of Lucifer's religion. And so that both of them, though, it's part of their trope is they reinvent the meaning of words. Oakes doesn't do it so much these days, but every other talk he used to tell everyone, aren't you stupid thinking the word means what it means in the dictionary? You're so ignorant. Let me explain to you what you've never heard before but should be obvious, like he did with the white salamander. So this is, again, a case of just rewriting the script, because they can't possibly allow for real free agency being important, or even, heaven forfends, the idea that you might learn a few things from making mistakes and sinning. Much better not to sin in the first place. So it's just the paranoia. It's just so intense. Righteous fear. We must have righteous fear. And as
Like you
I've
said, it
noted
sounds like
here,
a
it
rehash of
definitely
one of his
sounds
classic
like one of
books.
his. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Um,
But, I mean, we've
Bednar,
discussed that a million times.
yeah, we've gone on the whole agents to act, not objects to be acted upon. That's a favorite phrase of his as well. He's said that a number of
Yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah.
So we moved on to this guy whose opening story about his son was quite funny. That
Yeah.
his son's mum, his wife, his mother on his phone, he couldn't find what he was down as, but he was just simply down as not mother, which is
That's
fun.
something my family would do. It's like
Yeah.
parental units.
So he was asking, by what name are you called? He was talking about the journey to discipleship. It was it's a fine enough talk. But you've made a point here, Peter. You said it means standing with prophets and apostles as they carry Christ's message across the world with its doctrine, covenants, and ordinances. But those do keep changing, despite their protests when they say that the covenants of the temple haven't changed. Well, they have. Some people covenanted to avoid loud laughter. Others haven't made that same covenant. Some have covenanted to obey
My
their
wife
husbands as their
covenanted
husbands
to
obey
obey
God.
me.
Yeah, your wife
Yes.
covenanted to obey you as you obey God. People after 2019 are just covenanting to directly obey God. All of them. So the covenants change. The doctrines change.
So this is the thing, so if he's going to say a big part of the way we take upon ourselves the name of Christ is standing by the prophets, yes, if we got the truth, let's charge along and take the world. We should be ambitious. This church should fill the world if it's got the truth. Obviously, clearly not succeeding in that. But what are we standing with them for? If the message is doctrines, covenants, and ordinances, they keep changing all three. They've literally dropped covenants from the endowment, no explanation. Change doctrines. I've recently bought the book "This Is My Doctrine," which is all about how pretty much every doctrine in the church has changed. We've got several versions of the Godhead, for goodness sake. Some of them have a lady in, and the ordinances keep being tinkered with as well, particularly the temple ones and what they mean and the meaning that they attach to them. If now our covenants are moral agency, and when you got baptized you automatically covenanted to serve a mission when you were older, and all the stuff they keep piling on, it's a constantly shifting sands. So how can we trumpet this truth to the world when they can't even make up their minds what it is? This is part of the frustration. It's just
Uh,
a sea of confusion. Anyway,
he
so that really triggered me, as
That's
you can
right.
tell.
I could tell. He talks about his great grandfather
Mm,
Martin. He was one of the ordinary people trying to go about doing good to the whole human race in or out of the church. Lovely,
I
really
love
lovely.
that. That was so
Um,
good.
that should
And
be
that really
celebrated.
spoke to me, actually. Yeah, because
Mhm.
I've got, a great grandmother who was the first in my family to join the church. And, he showed pictures of his great grandfather at the at the Swiss temple being sealed.
Mhm.
And I've got a photo of my dad as a little 10-year-old boy who went to the dedication of the Swiss temple with his dad,
Ring a
my
bell.
granddad.
Yeah.
So I really felt like a connection there. And
Mm.
that's it. My family are examples of ordinary people going about to do good in the world to the whole human race. That's what Mormonism at its heart should be. That's the best of what it is. But
Mhm.
so much of what they do cuts out whole sections of the human race, demonizes them,
Mm.
makes them personally do cruel things to them, or they just can't hold on to them for
Yeah.
the reasons we discuss regularly. But I
Mhm.
love that value, that the core value, should it doesn't matter if they're members of the church or not.
Yeah.
You love everyone the same, and you
In or
celebrate.
out of the church, do
Yeah.
good to them.
So that was a
And
beautiful expression of generations of good people in this church
mm.
who've done the right things. Yeah.
Now we got our first use of the word Mormon. So here is where we see the discomfort about someone using the word Mormon, because it's like Nelson's
Mm.
gone, we can say it again kind of feeling. But then we feel the need to apologize because we're still under the shadow of Nelson. It was so much fun to watch. Here we go.
Co-worker met him on the way to the pub with a crumpled religious booklet in his hand. He had found it on the street and told Martin that he felt something different after reading the pamphlet entitled Was wissen Sie von den Mormonen? Or, What do you know about the Mormons? I'm certain that title has changed.
It's so
Ugh,
awkward. He's like, I'm
it's a
sure it's
racist
changed.
epithet. Ugh.
It's like he dropped the N word and he was like, I
Yeah.
mean,
Mm.
you
In
know,
front of everyone.
honestly, can we? I want to watch that again. I,
Do it.
I want to watch this last bit again. Was wissen Sie?
Or, What do you know about the Mormons? I'm certain that title has changed.
It's the hands. It's the hands and the little look down. It's the help.
Very Wallace and Gromit, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, bless
Underbite.
him, bless him. But it shows that that word has been so part of our church that we were making pamphlets in German in the early 1900s asking people what do they know about the Mormons. And
Yeah.
I think we will see the word Mormon come back. That is genuinely my prediction.
I'm skeptical about that one because
Yeah.
they've made it so toxic. I think the membership won't go with it now. I think
I think
they've brainwashed them so
Peter, have you
hard.
learned nothing about members of the Mormon Church? Sorry, I mean members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yes.
If you learn
Yeah.
nothing
Okay.
about them,
If the
they can
bot, sorry,
self-gaslight better than anyone.
I will rewind that statement. If the prophet, seer, and revelator announces that Mormon's
Mhm.
back, it's a great blessing. Hurrah! I'm a Mormon again.
Because
Yeah.
think about it, all these people who had profile, probably still, if they go back through their old Facebook profile pictures, there will be the frame saying "I'm a Mormon."
I'm a
So many
Mormon.
people who get really self-righteous about using the full
Yeah.
name of the church. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think there's a reason why when Heather
Mhm.
Gay tried to copyright the phrase "bad Mormon" for her book, the church kicked off and went, "No, no way."
Yes.
They were
Shameless. Yeah.
protective over the word Mormon, over their rights to the word
Yeah.
Mormon. They've got it right. So
Yeah.
between Oaks
I'm not sure
throwing,
Oakes was that keen on it either. So I don't see that that's really something he'd be that passionate
I
about.
don't know, but
It
that's
kicked
the
off
point.
maybe.
It's
We'll
whether he's
see.
passionate about it or not. It will just start coming
Yeah.
back because it was Nelson's shadow that held it together. It was his thing. It was in deference to him you use the full name of the church because so much was done in deference to Nelson. Now that Nelson's gone, we're going to see a very different relationship to the president of the church, I think, because I don't think Oakes commands that level of deference from people. I don't think he wants that level of deference.
Interestingly, yeah. Well, I don't know. Oakes has been my nemesis all along, and he is Darth.
Oh
Oakes,
yeah, tell me about it,
Lord,
Peter.
but,
He had me excommunicated.
yeah. Well, me too. Haha. But but more specifically, you win. But his final talk was actually quite cute. Sorry.
Oh no! There was a genuine moment of
won't
emotion,
say that again.
and I actually felt something for him. My heart grew 3 sizes that day.
He actually got. Anyway, we'll get to that.
No worries. Let's have a look at the son of Jeffrey R. Holland.
Oh, the next generation of nepotism. Did he end up being the president of a university in Utah? Yes, he did. Just like Daddy, of course.
Yep, and now he's a GA70, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up as an apostle at some point.
Talking of universities in Utah, no one's mentioned the killing of Charlie Kirk whatsoever of any kind.
No one has spoken about it. They've hardly spoken about what happened in Michigan. I mean, they have, but we'll see that not really. Compared to it was mentioned. It was mentioned more explicitly, and I think more was asked for the families in that closing prayer of this session than we heard from any of the sort of male leaders.
But this thing, they can't go off script. They're so robotic. They're like, we are doing this exactly as it was planned, and
even Oakes later will feel the need to tell us that thing I just read to you was written after President Nelson died. The part I'm about to read to you now was prepared and approved before he died. And I was still a prophet now. And then the first words out of his mouth are the family proclamation, and you're like, okay, right, here we go.
No, here we go. Sorry, we're peaking too soon.
Yes.
So this was fascinating because
it was really interesting
about Jonah and and that him being a type of Christ, of being in the well for 3 days, like Jesus in the tomb. So he's in the world of academia. He's I don't know. We'll see later what his job was, but so he must know on some level that there are serious issues with the idea of treating mythical characters from the Old Testament, like Jonah in a whale, as real people. And he kind of plays both sides. So I just thought this was a really fascinating talk of the torment and the confusion and basic weirdness of where the leadership of the church still are when they kind of teach gospel doctrine like everything is literal. So he says that Jonah fled from his calling in Nineveh. He started with a kind of disarming joke about how a teacher at school taught that it's impossible actually for a whale to swallow a human because their throats are too thin. And then a girl said, well, what about in the Bible? And and he said something like, well, if you get to heaven,
so the girl said, when I get to heaven, I'll ask, right?
I'll ask him.
And the teacher
says, well, then he said, what if he didn't go to heaven?
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, you can ask him.
Then you can ask him.
So that was brilliant because it introduced the idea of it's not literal. But then he carried on from there on as if it was. He said, we laugh, but we should not miss the power Jonah's story offers every humble seeker of happiness, especially those struggling. So I love that. If it was given in the sense of, okay, he definitely wasn't actually swallowed by a whale, though he describes him sitting in that horrible dark place for 3 days. But okay, so what have we got here? We got a wonderful metaphor. We have a foundation myth, a metaphorical mythology with a moral message, the things that people can always learn from. Are we allowed, though, to treat the scriptures on a Sunday as metaphors that we don't have to take literally, is the question. And a lot of people who are nuanced or post-Mormons say, I'd love to come to church as long as I'm allowed to, I can get spiritual food from the Book of Mormon, just don't insist it's all real. But then he gets into Adam and Eve. So if you go to the next slide.
What's that? We just want to acknowledge Chelsea Collier's lovely super chat. Nevermo, who loves watching you, Nemo. Thank you very much. Jammy Dodgers in hand. Well, cheers. Enjoy your jammy dodgers. Next
I've got
slide, please.
3 left.
Ooh, good.
The mortal condition, and so he talks about how we're all facing our mortal condition, like the totality of the challenge of being human, the reality of our lives is in consequence of choices made by Adam and Eve, and
Mhm.
our experience of the opposites of sin and joy and everything you get taught in the endowment. So this is now very much not metaphorical. He's
Mhm.
saying Adam and Eve were real people, and we're all
Yes.
living with the consequences of their choices. So I just thought this is a really fascinating talk
Mhm.
where he's kind of dipping his toes in both sides, but ultimately the whole fabric of Mormonism as it is, LDS Mormonism, falls apart as soon as you get to the point of it being metaphor.
Mm.
But weirdly, I was told, I'm pretty sure in my first interview with a member of the Temple Presidency before my endowment when I was 18, that you can treat this as metaphorical.
Mhm.
I've got a dear friend of the family who is mission president of the London Temple since, who's also taught very specifically, you get whatever symbolism or message you want to from the endowment. That's the point. And some GAs have taught along those lines.
Mhm.
And indeed, others have pointed out that Brigham Young's construction of it is metaphorical because he didn't actually believe it. He believed in the Adam God doctrine. So
Mhm.
there used to be some kind of wording around what you're going to see as symbolic and metaphorical. But that's not because of being metaphorical. It's because Brigham Young had an alternate doctrinal thing going on.
Right.
So it's all very tangled. But this is part of the problem Mormonism has. It all roads lead to the temple. But when you get there, what do you got? Masonic cosplay mixed with some actually quite cool ideas with some Christianizing covenants.
Mhm.
But is it literal or not? But it absolutely insists that Adam andEve are very real people.
Yes.
And you're
And
not even allowed to have a difficult conversation with that, I can
that's
tell you.
where you get into trouble there.
It's a
Um,
mess, you know.
I
Ugh. So
I
he
want
stepped in
to
it, basically. Bless him.
jump
Yeah.
here to Jonah
Yeah.
being lifted up as an
Mm.
example of being great because he was flawed. And I think it felt
Mm.
like Holland was at both times saying that you should give leaders of the church a break because they're flawed and that's what makes them great, because then,
Mm.
you know, that's what makes them human. And equally, our flaws, even in our flaws, we can still, you know, kind of do our best. But the humility that we see in Jonah, the humility of him throwing himself overboard because he realizes he's the problem, the humility of him trying to put it right once he's swallowed by the fish, all that sort of stuff, right? We don't
Mm.
see in our church leaders, do we? They're not following that
Mm.
example of Jonah. They're not publicly owning when they get it wrong. They're not publicly
Mm.
owning their flaws. When
Mm.
they lie about whether electroshock treatment happened when they were president of BYU, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. You know, they're not owning
Yeah.
it when
Well,
they get
it's
fined by the government.
it's the obliviousness we always talk about through every conference, and all your
Mhm.
guests do, is they're not practicing what they preach. So the fundamental definition of hypocrisy, it's always micromanaging the anxious perfectionism of the members while feeling no obligation whatsoever to do these things themselves.
Because Holland said we
It's
should follow the lead
unrighteous
of the
dominion.
repentant Jonah. That's what he's
Mm.
teaching the members of the church to do.
Mm.
So why don't our leaders
Mm.
follow that lead by repenting themselves?
Yeah.
Why don't they repent?
Mm.
That is a question. And Dallin H. Oakes, the man who's about to become president of the church, says the church does not seek apologies, nor do they give them. So he's very clear that repentance is off the table for the church as an institution, and by extension, its
Mm.
leaders personally, it would seem.
Mm.
Which is crazy. Carlos A. Godoy. I have no notes here for him, other than to say he was also around. He's part of the conference death march because he he was also present for the death of those people in Lesotho.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, oh yeah, first thing, some even offered to buy my house in North Salt Lake. Now, as I understand it, houses in North Salt Lake are expensive and big, and it's kind of a weird flex that he's.
It was because he's not from Utah, but he has to buy a house there because he's been called as a general authority. But again, also the content of what we're saying about desperately poor people in the developed world. Again, this was so tone
people are
deaf
starving in Africa
to make a
talk, but it's
joke.
okay because they're happy.
Yeah, but we'll
Right.
get, the trope. So for him to start with, again, they're so oblivious to their own privileges and wealth that a little chuckle that he was accidentally looked like he was on the list of people being released rather than called, and people reached out, can I buy your house? So he's worried about the property values in one of the most expensive places in America. But then he's gushing, there's always a risk of white savioring. I think there should be some patience with people experiencing culture clash from where they're from, because it's beautiful. He's fallen in love with the people of Africa and they're living a completely different life to what he's used to. And that will be a process for anyone doing that, however virtuously you think and wokely everyone should handle that situation. So he kind of had a repeating trope about, they're still happy and smiling despite all their hardships. But it was interesting to have him kind of describe what's happening in Africa, because this is the only place really in the world, apart from maybe the Philippines, where the church is genuinely appears to be booming. The church is flourishing. There are generational families, so that points to generational stability. Some educated and successful, others poor, and he's saying they're being benefited, one, by tithing faithfulness, get that in. Tithing is even for the destitute. And then the educational programs that the church is offering, and he listed Succeed in School, English Connect, BYU Pathways, and the Perpetual Education Fund. I want to know more about this, because my understanding is the Perpetual Education Fund had collapsed they've stopped talking about it because it was so mismanaged after taking lots of people's money for it. I don't know if it is still going on in Africa then, maybe. BYU Pathways has got a huge question mark over it, because I'm not sure other education systems actually recognize it as a qualification. It's like a taste or an entry thing for BYU qualifications, but why aren't they offering BYU degrees online rather than sort of lower level? That's something I want to find a lot more about, and I've never heard of the other two. So they sound good though. I like I'm a teacher, Succeed in School, English Connect, yes please. So maybe that's reaching out secondary school level, which I hope they're doing something there.
Right,
which all the other
I'm
Christian
going to take
churches in
this
Africa
slide
have done for generations. Go for it.
because James Faust says the church often does not attract great people, but makes people great. What Peter Bleakley would like to say, and I can say in 10 seconds, is it then loses them. It doesn't retain them. Welling Ward hasn't grown and still hasn't got itself a building because they baptize people and then they lose them. This is what's going on. The church is falling apart. Is that a good Peter Bleakley coverage there? Is that right?
Yeah, well, it's got a building now, but it's got a size limit. So if they do baptize converts, they have to go somewhere else. I can't. I can't even with the stupidity.
So anyway, so he moves
talks
around in Mozambique. State
So
president
again,
was in his 20s.
This is good. Yeah.
The patriarch's
Malawi,
doing 8 to
Zimbabwe,
10 blessings a week.
Lesotho.
And he's like, oh, they just keep coming. They just keep coming. It's like, well, all right, okay, fine. He's trying to flex about what's going on. Lesotho is going on there. He mentions the accident. And yeah, he was shocked by the extreme poverty of the people, but then is always there to have their smiley faces and grateful hearts. And it's strange because the church could do something to alleviate that poverty or do more than it is doing, it would seem. And so
you've got a dear friend who's just returned from a mission in Kenya and went to Sheffield to his homecoming. And he had an amazing experience.
He's a mutual friend of ours, Peter.
Yes. And he just messaged me. Huge respect for the people, and it was a profound spiritual experience for him. And while also not being at all naive about the challenges politically, socially, the financial setup, some leaders in the church being financially corrupt and exploiting the church's systems, and so on. It's a complicated mess like it is everywhere else. But so in a sense, there's a virtue from learning from people who can be happy with little, but where the church at times fetishizes that, rather than alleviating the poverty, as you say, or just stop taking tithing from them, for goodness sake. Give them the money. That's what the Old Testament teaches about tithing. You give it to the poor. You don't take it from them. That's obscene. It's for a church that rich, it's unacceptable that the first thing out of that guy's mouth was their tithing faithfulness, is how they're being blessed.
We jump onto Dale G. Rennan because I'm conscious of time.
Yeah.
Dale G. Rennan
Absolutely.
was interesting because he's the first one to break the rule that Dan and HX put out there, which was we should keep our thoughts and our long dedications to President Nelson for his funeral. And instead, Rennan decides, no, I'm going to open my talk with a very long anecdote about how great Russell M. Nelson was as a surgeon and how wonderful things are, etc. And then he goes, well, and, in the same way that this guy was talking about his name being connected to Russell M. Nelson, so he changed his behavior, we should look at how our behavior might change when we connect our name to Jesus. Yeah, that's cool. That's a way of segueing. That's fine. That's a way of getting of Russell M. Nelson involved and not having to do it. So, yeah, PBK award for sure, Doug Vincent says in the comments. Absolutely. I have a little opening VT for him. Because has he just told us that Russell M. Nelson's wife has died?
2018, at the University of Utah, a special professorship was created called the Dr. Russell M. Nelson and Ansel W. Nelson Presidential Chair in Cardiothoracic Surgery. Cardio meaning heart, thoracic meaning chest. It honored President Nelson's important work as a heart surgeon and the support he received from his late wife, Dansel. This professorship was paid for by...
So when he says his late wife, Dansel, we'll get to it. Is she his late wife because he's dead, or is she dead?
No, she died. She died of a heart attack.
When did this happen? How did I miss it? Oh, sorry.
What?
Yeah, hang on.
You're getting the names mixed up.
I've just got the names massively mixed up in my head. I was like,
polygamy is really confusing children.
Polygamy just confused me massively. There we go. There is one of the biggest mistakes I've made live on air. You're welcome,
blushing.
world.
He's gone all red. Watch him go more red.
Falling apart. Honestly.
Red as a jammy dodger.
It wouldn't be my fault that he had polygamous wives, would it now? So, yeah. Polygamy got me. Anyway, so yes, of course Dansel died. That's why he married Wendy. So that's point one. But the rest of the clip, here we go.
A fund designed to last into the future. The individual selected for this type of prestigious professorship receives recognition, salary support, and research funds. The first surgeon chosen to hold the professorship was Dr. Craig H. Selsman, a skilled heart surgeon who's not a member of the church.
Because the fact he's not a member of the church matters, I guess, because then all the really nice things he's going to say about Nelson are then definitely totally legit and not influenced by the fact that that man's his prophet or his apostle. I suppose that's the implication there. But it goes on to say that, this guy thought Nelson was a really good guy and thought Nelson's attitude to surgery was really good. And so they then developed a Russell M. Nelson mantra in his surgical unit and all that kind of stuff. And it was just all a little bit, all just a little bit.
But very much, I kept getting confused about whether he's talking about having Nelson as a role model or Jesus. There was definitely a lot of overlap if we go through a couple of the slides. And also lots of lists. I was just thinking while listening to Brennan talk, so slow, dreary voice. He just sends you to sleep. He's great for insomnia. But I was just thinking sort of a bit meta this session because we're coming to the end and you kind of reflect on the whole experience. Just so boring. These people are not communicators. The best they can come up with is a kind of a diagram and some occasional catchphrase and some lists. And
well, until we get to John Amos. John Amos could communicate to anyone, but Karen.
Absolutely. He can cook me food anytime. Have we got slides up, please? Where are they?
Yeah, yawn lists. They are on screen. You should be able to see them.
No, not that I can see. There they are. Okay. So we got charity to all is essential to our progress, and alongside it, we develop other qualities like integrity, patience, and diligence. And I was just thinking, they're all trying to, they've got this kind of analytical minds, and we've heard this all our lives. It's this idea that if you could get the right list, and it's like giving people an instruction manual to follow of these random spiritual psychological concepts, and you think, and it gets super complicated, and it's like watching diagrams of really bad teacher training with all the acronyms, and your brain starts to leak out of your ears because it's all complete nonsense.
Yeah.
And so you've got integrity, patience, and diligence. So if you are willingly, intentionally, and enthusiastically align our will with Christ, so it's again the hyper-positivity doctrine of Mormonism. You've got to be, oh, hurrah, rah, 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 and do that. Carry on. Next slide, please.
Next slide, please. Yeah.
Next slide. Now, then Nelson was a teacher, healer, and a researcher. So the lapel pin at cardiothoracic surgery says, teach, heal, discover. I love that. Yes, let's teach people. Let's heal them. Let's let them discover. However, they're teaching us loads of lies still and taking out the more interesting bits of what they could be teaching us. They are harming far more people than they heal in the church, hence they leave. And they really don't like you going discovering anything. So
No.
again, it's just these
Not sad.
unintended ironies all the time. Like, do the thing you're teaching. Actually understand it first, and then really put it together. Because yes, this should be our religion, but it's not clearly.
No.
You can move on. So again, an equation identify. So I don't know
I've lost
quite where
control
this
of the
all
show.
came from. He's lost control of his lists. You know, my dear state president, who's learned a lot since then, once sent out a state newsletter in the 80s or 90s that had, I shit you not, 5 different lists of things everyone should be doing. And it took him a long time to realize that no one understood or really reacted to that. But
I
here we
mean,
got a list.
he's a German, right?
Yeah,
And
no,
Germans
this
of
is a
state.
different one actually.
Okay.
No,
Yes,
no,
never mind. Then that joke
an
doesn't
earlier
work. Your
one.
on the list doesn't work. You know what I mean?
I know, sorry.
That's fine. But
Yeah.
alignment,
Identification
alignment.
plus remembrance plus emulation plus alignment equals empowerment. And it sound brilliant? What the hell does any of it mean, really? It's just bloody words.
Alignment's a great
teach
word.
something heartfelt.
Alignment is a
What
great
does
word.
that even mean? You know.
Got to be aligned.
Anyway, he finished with a flourish of "He lives." I absolutely know it. And I thought, unless you're Cookie claiming to have seen his face and heard his voice, no, you don't absolutely know it, Del. Sorry.
Spencer
But
Davis
if
has
you
said,
do,
I
tell
can
us why.
see Nemo's losing his mind. Yeah, you're about right. 5 hours of general conference with a 7-hour time difference has that effect on a man. But it's all right. We move on to John D. Amos, whose voice is second only to the man called Brick that we had, I believe, in the first session of conference, who sounded like James Earl Jones a little bit. John D. Amos's accent, incredible. Could listen to
Louisiana.
this man. It was a real Louisiana twang. Just, we had some very different sounding people at this conference, which was really nice. It wasn't just a constant flow of people from Utah,
white people,
right?
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, beautiful. So he's talking about Creole
jambalaya, catfish pie in the bayou. So I served my mission in Alabama, and I missed me some Creole food. So this was brilliant. So he was talking about his culture, having appreciation for recipes, how he stumbled across online the restoration conversations, which again, unforced error. If anyone actually goes and watches Nelson's restoration conversations, they'll see the powerfully awkward experience of him demonstrating a seerstone.
And also him
lady.
telling the children that a prophet would never lead him astray and a prophet speaks for God.
And if he did, he'd be killed. Well, he's just been killed. I mean, you could say it's old age, but you know, you never know. God might have finally had enough. So Nelson teaching, tribute to Nelson, that the scriptures are God's recipes for happy living are.
Yes. And I love that he said the good news recipe Jesus Christ is the secret ingredient, because he talks about something called Tony's, I think, which is like a spice mix that essentially you chuck in and it makes up for any mistakes you made while making these recipes. And similarly, he's saying Jesus Christ is the answer is always Jesus Christ, and he is the secret ingredient that you can just throw in and it'll fix everything. And I like that concept. I do. I think that's a really nice concept. That Jesus Christ is the answer and the thing you can actually throw in. And I wish the church would do more of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
But again, it's the thing. The answer
that's
is
all I got to
always
say about
Jesus.
that. Okay.
All I got to say about that.
Yeah.
So the answer is always Jesus, though. It's like, no, it's not, as you've already discussed in previous sessions. No, it's not. The answer Jesus doesn't work for why are they three different accounts of the first vision. The answer Jesus doesn't work for why it was there 150 years of racism. The answer Jesus doesn't work for why is it okay to cover up child abuse. The answer to those questions is not Jesus Christ. You know, so it's not a magic spell that you can just fix everything with, as you are offering it to be.
But it's a nice concept. Whether it works practically is a different story.
Be like Jesus, that would be good. Try it.
Yeah. This was a
Asani
non-talk.
Farias from Brazil.
I don't know what you thought of it, but I've literally written the words "bit of a non-talk."
He's an MBA, master of business administration.
Yeah.
Have we got anything?
40 years ago when he was 16.
When he was 16.
Yeah.
Go on.
After you.
Oh, a classmate who seemed to have a light. So we got a light in their countenance just in time before the end of the conference. The Mormons have the light in their eyes. Gave him a Book of Mormon, and so he practiced Moroni's promise. Scripture study helped him to resist people telling him it was a mistake. So I think this was the Book of Mormon talk of the conference, kind of. So he's talking about his own conversion with the help of the Book of Mormon. Next slide. If there is one.
I'm just getting a link from someone in the chat who is saying that the whale can't swallow a human thing is a comedy bit that you can find on YouTube. So Matthew Holland might have just taken that from a YouTube video, which if he has, beautiful. I need to know immediately. There was nothing else because Dallin H. Oaks, which we're going to need the next 15 minutes to talk about him, to be honest. So I think we're just about on schedule here.
Dallin brings it. He doesn't waste to talk.
No. He was slowing down on temples. We've already discussed that. And it came after Nelson died. Straight in. They're like, right, okay, no more. And then he just dives straight into the family proclamation and dives straight into what we all know Dallin H. Oaks for, which is his love for the traditional family and his real focus on that being the heart and soul of the church and the thing that everyone needs in their lives. So here we go.
Yeah. So he started in sort of tradition.
There we go. Yeah.
So he started in traditional manner, family proclamation. He was I think he was doing his legalistic thing, because I think what he was saying in that this bit of my talk was written before Nelson died, but I think the implication was, but it was still just as authoritative as now. So he's saying, obviously now that guy's dead, I am the king, and everything I say now is to be regarded as the teaching of the prophet of the church.
The will of the
He's
Lord,
saying this stuff I wrote before that moment still counts. I was still a prophet, seer, and revelator then. That was his point. You know, it's all as if anyone cares. This is all, you know, proper prophet stuff from here on. And multiply and replenish the earth remains in force. So he's increasingly been mentioning in his talks his concern about the collapse of birth rates. And they're seeing this clearly as one of the reasons for the decline in church membership, because they're finding it really hard to retain converts. He knows the secret data that 90% now of all converts are gone within a year or two. So he is aware that the slightly higher statistical chance of holding on to people in the church is if they're conditioned from birth to be Mormons. So he's obsessed. He started putting in their guilt tripping for not having enough children. So this was another drip on that thing that's going to increase. He talked about how the plan was taught to us in a council of an eternal family, which isn't a phrase I've heard him use before. So that's presumably like the council of the gods. And in the United States, he's talking about the data,
That'd be the
the
council in heaven.
demographics. Yeah. I mean, while I was doom scrolling between sessions, I did actually come across a quite sobering little TikTok about how if you were born in the 70s, you had, by the time you were 16, you had a 90% chance that both your parents were still in your home. But then it started dropping off rapidly, and now in America it's 50%. 50% of 16-year-olds don't have both their parents in the home. So this is real. He was speaking to a genuine, massive social problem. And something I've started to clock as a teacher is that my pupils who are having the most difficulty with being organized and meeting deadlines, their dads are not at home. And I'm really like, I can't ignore that anymore. I mean, the stats bear that out anyway. We knew this, that single parenthood makes it all very much more difficult on average for raising kids, and certainly helping their educational attainment. So he's right to be concerned. I agree. But then my question would be, well, what are you as a church actually doing to do anything about this? You don't teach people marriage skills and things. You sort of got a course that you pull out when people get engaged, but you are not, and because you killed off the priesthood manuals rather than just studying a general conference talk in priesthood, we used to have manuals about how to be a dad, how to be a husband, what is your role as a parent, and you could discuss it with other people. It would teach you those gender specific roles and skills, and we don't have any of that now. The church is not helping strong families. They talk about being all about families, but we do far less than other Christian churches in terms of marriage preparation. So
here's my prompt. Are they going full Handmaid's Tale? Is this the start of Gilead? Is this where it's like, no, we are really going to start pushing on? Hang on.
He's
Birth rates
always
declining.
been there. Yeah.
Which
he's
is
always
that's
been
how
there. This is not new.
Starts.
Yeah. But what we got today was this incredible, very personal, heartfelt insight into what he misses. And it is from a long time ago. These people are ancient, crusty old relics from a long gone era, but he described it vividly and he spoke with emotion. I really felt it. And I thought, you know what? You're right. What is there from that kind of family-centered life that we could possibly bring into the 21st century? And he had some genuinely good ideas that have worked for my family in lots of ways. So I thought this was actually really good from here on. But the context is in the boyhood farm he was raised in the West 70 years ago, as you put in, everything was kind of done directed by the family. You know, in family agricultural life, everyone mucks in, you all run the farm. Hardly anyone lives like that now, although, you know, there's obviously a big agricultural sector in the USA still. There was far less, now there's far less parental direction of activities and how families earn a living. And I just thought, well, compared to the Middle Ages and the feudal system, what part of the problem with this nostalgia that his generation of general authorities have is America's experience in the 1940s and 50s when they were young families and young marrieds was not the history of America, was not what went on before then. It was a very unique moment in time where America got incredibly rich and had labor-saving devices in the home after World War II, that was paying men enough to be able to support a wife and children at home. That only lasted for a couple of decades. That has not been the truth for the last 20 years. And it's economically devastating young families trying to replicate that lifestyle. And the church has been telling them to do that lifestyle and still is. It's literally financially impossible for almost everyone to actually do that, especially if you're going to have lots of kids. So he's delusional in that sense, but he's describing what he's missing. You know, it was even in the feudal system, women went out to work. Loads of our working class grandmothers were working like crazy outside of the home while raising 11 children. They didn't get to live the American comfortable middle class lifestyle that he and his generation are nostalgic for. He said divorce, death, and separation are realities.
So Carl's calling it an unfunded mandate, meaning that they're mandating members to get out there and do something they just can't afford.
Sorry. And they take their money. They set them up to fail because they take all of their savings to pay for a mission, and then the kids come back 2 years behind all of their peers, and then they tell them while still at university, penniless, to get married and start having children and just hope things work out like it did for them. But even for their generation, it didn't work out for loads of people. But when you're sitting in the quorum of 70, by definition, everyone there, it worked. But not
Yep.
the 10 people for each one of them that it didn't work for. They're not in the room anymore. Like when I
Yeah.
sit in Gravesend Branch, which it is now, and everyone's like, oh, it's all good, the gospel's going fine, we're baptizing. I'm like, there are ghosts. There's 100 people who should be here. Where are they? You've forgotten about them
Yeah.
already. It makes me, they
Anyway.
ignore the evidence that these things don't work. So he said we were raised in a happy home, and he was conscious of having a father because his mother spoke about his deceased father, and his granddad kind of stepped up to take on that role a bit. But he said every single mother can teach the love of a heavenly father. That's okay, but that's not really helping on the ground, and all that. But then again, they keep talking to women. Single parenthood is a lady problem, and
What
we're here
about
to
single
support the
fathers?
women. Where's the dads? Where's the
Yeah.
dads? What are you
That
saying to
happens
the
to men
fathers
too.
of
Men
those
lose their
children?
wives.
Yeah,
It does
but
happen.
they're so stuck in these cliches of
Mm.
victimhood of single mothers, and how pitiful it is. It's very mixed up,
We talk
while at
about
the
this
same
moment
time quite endearing.
of genuine
Yeah,
emotion. I mean, we've had a lot of crocodile
yeah,
tears in conference. We've had a lot of performative emotion,
yeah,
but it felt
mm,
genuine coming from him.
yeah.
It
I
felt like he'd
believed it.
genuinely gone back to
Yeah,
that place, that
yeah,
moment in time where his
mm,
grandfather came and said, "I'll be your father and I'll look after you."
mm.
And I think in that sense,
In
you can
lots of yeah,
see. So you
mm,
you can see where the deeper seated motivation for this comes
yeah,
from. It comes from 70
yeah.
years ago, and he's not able to
Mm.
actually deal with the
But he's
reality
not
as it is
over
on the
it.
ground today. But he's not over
He's
it. It's
God.
still there.
And people often wonder, how can he be so robotic and cruel and nasty about whole groups of people and destroy families with his words, in so many ways, especially if they have LGBTQ members, and
Mhm,
drive them out of the church. But you see the emotional wounds that he's carrying, and that
mm.
must have impacted him in some ways. Although he's had his own family. I don't think he had many children though. It's all a bit hypocritical. He only had like one or two, I think.
Mhm.
Um, so then he gets back to the LGBTQ hate, a
Yeah.
bit more subtly this time. Many families have beloved members who do not embrace gospel values and expectations. The gays! Such members need our love and patience. So this is a bit kinder than
Interesting.
usual.
Yeah. Could someone
Repentance and
send that top
spiritual.
part to the sibling of mine who shuns me, please and thank you?
Yeah,
Because I need
indeed.
love and patience.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got a bit of that as well. Repentance and spiritual growth can now this was really interesting doctrinally. Repentance and spiritual
Mhm.
growth can continue in the next life. Now,
Mm.
that was possibly one of the most momentous things he said,
Okay, talk me
because
through that.
he's because that is the original Mormonism, the idea of eternal progression in a sense, and the distinct possibility you could move between kingdoms as you progress. Surely a
Mhm.
compassionate father after 1 trillion years will let some people out of the celestial kingdom if they've learned a thing or two. And there's to kind of put down the shutters and build the walls and fossilize our concept of these kingdoms is a fairly recent development by the Sith Lords. Um, but he can see the problems in that.
Mhm.
Nelson has been teaching very specifically sad heaven. If your relative
Yeah,
hasn't repented before they die, they're gone. There will be an empty
yeah.
seat at the table in your mansion in heaven. But he said, no, spirit repent, including repentance and spiritual growth can continue in the next life. And in the
Mm.
context he framed it subtly, but there he was saying you can have hope even if your gay children do not turn around in this life. Things might evolve in the next.
Mm.
So that was now they often say terrible, irrational, undoctrinal things like if you, and others said it in this conference, if your children have strayed but you stay faithful, you can earn their way back into the celestial kingdom. Someone basically taught that at this conference. Now that's irrational. If you are punished for your own sins, therefore you can't be blessed for other people's goodness either. It's on you. You have your moral agency, as we were reminded. But this was just opening a really interesting door. But again, it's tormenting the members, which is true. What am I meant to do if my kid's inactive or gay? Where is my hope? Is it
it's more important.
And they fix it now.
The words of a living prophet are more important than the words of a dead prophet. So Dan H. Oakes is now the man in charge. So if any of you are in a situation where a family member is shunning you or is being difficult with you because you don't share the same gospel values as them anymore, or you've left the church, or you've been excommunicated, or whatever it is, just remind them that the new man in charge is saying that those members, so you, need love and patience. That's what you should be able to expect from your believing family members from now on, because that's what the new head honcho says. So if they're not giving you love and patience, then tell them they need to listen to their prophet better. There you are.
You don't have to keep testifying at them in panic.
Yep.
Family. Now, this was the lovely stuff. So he's saying, in a sense, he's talked about, I had this ancient past cowboy experience on the ranch, in the 1930s or whenever. What can we do today to create that family-centered lifestyle? He said family reunions. He talked about being really important, but with the caveat, because it points people towards genealogy in the temple. Health. My family does amazing family reunions, because they are Mormon, so we do it.
It's interesting. The secular side of my family do more family reunions than the Mormon side of my family.
Yeah. Healthy activities as a family. Love that. He talked specifically about learning languages, perhaps taught by parents and grandparents. But again, that was so you can be missionaries. I think all the people in ex-Mormon TikTok and LDS, Reddit, who complain that I spent years learning a language and then they sent me to Ohio. That doesn't always work out for people. Teaching them a language as a child, it often gets totally ignored by the mission department. But hey, he's offered that. Families that counsel together. I love this phrase. I really like this. Can turn their family on if they turn the technology off.
What was the other thing you said? What your children really want for dinner is quality time with you?
Yes. Which I don't really believe for a moment. Most of them want to be on their phones. But
the more the more gutter-minded of those of us in the comments are raising eyebrows at the idea of turning one's own family on.
They are filthy.
Because
ignore them, Nemo. Rise above
absolute filth. But I get it.
Americans.
I get that sometimes a man who's speaking as a 93-year-old isn't going to spot that necessarily.
Turn on, tune in, dropouts.
But worshipping together, family stories and traditions are powerful teaching tools and often the best sources of inspiration for us and our posterity. That's along that same part.
I'm inspired by the stories of my ancestors. The reason I know them is because they were rich. Therefore, they had the luxury and the time to document themselves. They wrote letters, they wrote diaries, they filled albums full of photos, even in the Victorian age. Therefore, I know about them. I know nothing, diddly squat, about my working class, extremely poor Irish Catholic ancestors in Cork and the East End of London until sort of my granddad's points, really. So again, having these stories even to tell is a privilege of the wealthy, because the poor did not get documented anything like enough to pass that kind of legacy on. So again, there's always these problems with being culturally.
Conor Burns is saying up Cork
or class. There's all these are lovely ideas, Dallin, but again, you're living in a bubble, and these are the things you find on the shelves in your bubble to work with. Maybe talk. But if they just listened more to ordinary people, they'd realize half this stuff isn't the answer and they need some better ideas, or more varied anyway. Camille made the most of her
Camille
prayer.
Ann Johnson, who says all is well while also acknowledging the shooting in Michigan. and just generally that things aren't going well. We acknowledge grief and sorrow and mourning, but she just said we also know that we can have happiness in that because of Jesus Christ, etc. I don't really like to talk about what's said in the prayers for the most part. I do like to try and leave those alone.
They didn't give her a talk, so this is all she's got. Bless her. All is well in Zion. But that wasn't quite crass because they had just sang all is well, so that was fair enough.
And it's a lovely hymn. I love that hymn. That's one of my fond memories.
Careers. Who have we heard from in this session?
Gary R. Stevenson, you mean E. Stevenson, the almost billionaire.
For rich.
Yeah,
Did
had
you know?
iFit gone
Guess
public,
what I've just found out.
Made a lot of money.
In Britain, no one in America will know it. You know that kind of working class Cockney guy who's all over the telly and the internet talking about the economics and in the country and how it needs reforming because it's
Gary Stevenson, who grew up Mormon.
Gary Stevenson, not this. I didn't know he grew up Mormon. No one told me.
Yeah.
Same name as this guy who's a billionaire. Interesting. We should do a podcast about that.
All right, the two Garys, a tale of two Garys.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, cool. There we go.
Sean R. Dixon, Family and Science Education, he's CS guy. David Bednar, organizational behavior.
That is such a. I forget that that's his qualification, but that is such a David A. Bednar qualification right there. Organizational behavior.
It's control people.
Yeah, essentially.
Cavelier, public relations for Shell Oil. Matthew Holland, political science. Godoy, organizational behavior as well. Renland, medical doctor and manager. Amos, engineer. Fariath, business administration. Oakes, judge and lawyer. Camille, a lawyer for 30 years.
Yes, because she went out to work when she was being told not to by the prophet of the time.
Ezra Taft Benson and Spencer Kimball. Totally ignored them.
Just went out to work instead.
Yeah,
there we are.
Final thoughts on some slides, Nemo. Are you ready?
Oh my, Peter, you didn't tell me about this.
I've written. We could have looked, but I've written it down so it won't go on too long. I'll give myself a slip.
Right. Okay. Hang on, wait.
Just think about
you said final thoughts. How many of these do we have? Okay, there's 2 slides. Okay.
Yeah.
I shall sit and listen attentively. Children, sit. We listen.
Are you sitting comfortably? Have you got your jammy dodger?
Begin.
Okay. So think about the whole thing. Bit boring, wasn't it? It wasn't, really a humdinger conference, but kind of also the constant evolution of the church in a way. But I just had a weird experience. 10 minutes of Instagram scrolling between sessions today spoke to me far more helpfully and specifically about parenting, about relationship skills, for example, very specific than the whole conference. I got that in 10 minutes of random TikTok, like top quality, insightful. I'd never thought of that before advice. Even as a curious analytical nerds doing Mormon criminology, we sometimes forget how utterly boring and irrelevant most of what was said in this conference really is. It's repetitive, it's chalet, especially compared to, what secular, ordinary world is offering in depth, relevance, and inspiration. In the secular world, we can get things that are genuinely enlightening, inspired, and absolutely prophetic about what's coming in the future just from thinking rationally. So these people are not competing. They are losing the 21st century if this is the best they can do. They are decades too late to finally have a conference where Black people were just comfortably integrated rather than the one token person, which was brilliant to see. And they said substantial things. This is a big step, but it's 2025, like Star Trek future time. This should have happened literally in the 1950s. So we shouldn't get overexcited about seeing that. It's far too late. There's still hardly any female voices. They're not even pretending. In the past, they'd occasionally manage 4 talks by a woman. It's been relentless the last few, 3, 3, 3. Not even trying anymore to be prophetic. They're making no prophecies about the future because they are business. This is why. Because they're businessmen, they're lawyers, they're medics, they're accountants, they're engineers. They are engineers of making money and engineers of controlling people's minds and bodies as if they are machines. That's their world. That's their education. And they have promoted people who are clones of themselves into this oligarchy. You know, the humanities, which is the qualifications they're all missing, nearly all of them, are called that for a reason. They make you human. The only places where multitudes are turning up to cram into overflowing buildings of Mormon churches are places of developing world level desperate poverty, desperate grinding poverty. The true religion should be relevant and empowering to everyone everywhere. And they are failing it completely. You know, it's watching a funeral again.
Yeah, those were great final thoughts.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well. I think that is the problem we're facing here, is that the leadership of the church is just out of touch. They lack a breadth in their life experience to really touch the members of the church. And because they're in control of such vast sums of wealth, they could make such a difference, and they just don't, because they lack
they have no imagination.
Yeah.
They can't even think what to do with $1 trillion. And as I said before, you could take any primary class of 10-year-olds, give them a budget of $500 million or $1 billion, they would come up with completely Christ-like things to do with it that they couldn't better. They could do that tomorrow.
Well,
but they don't, because they have no imagination.
On the note of tomorrow I shall be doing very little. I shall be resting. I may not even do a video next week, because this has been quite the weekend, and I might take the week to recover from all this. But watch this space. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next time I upload. Make sure you like this video if you like this video. And this was only made possible by the kind support of you, the viewers. Those of you who are watching this and are supporting me already, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, everyone. In the comments, if you'd like to support this work financially, the links are in the description. Patreon has live Q&As. Channel membership has early video releases and is literally the cheapest way to support me. Donor box is for people who just want to send me money and don't care to get anything in return. Those people exist. Those people are very generous, and those people are greatly appreciated too. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I will see you in 6 months when we do this again, but I'll see you before then in my next video. So take care. I'm going to hit this little button that says end stream. I'll see you all again soon.